I'm here to read from my book Shepherd, which is about a boy in 1840 New South Wales who's been transported for poaching and is now stuck in a shepherd's hut out in the middle of nowhere with a dog called Jip and a couple of other shepherds. This is starting with chapter 3. My eyes snap open. The dogs are barking. The roof above me is barely visible in the lamplight. Rowdy stirs in the next bed. Sitting up, I push off my sheepskin, pull on my boots, and snatch up the burning lantern. Then I head for the door. Jip sounds frightened. I don't like this. Outside, the clearing is awash with moonlight. Black stumps rear out of the silver grass like rotting hulks on a calm sea. Joe stands near the watchbox, squinting down the barrel of his musket, sweeping it back and forth, back and forth. Wild dogs? I call to him. Dunno. Jip falls silent when I hiss at her, but Peddler keeps sniffing and whining at something on the ground, something that gleams in the glow of my lantern. I stoop to look. God have mercy. Joe? What? This is meat here. Poisoned meat, no doubt. Cut meat. What? Fresh mutton. Tossed from a distance. Bait, Joe. Who's there? Joe shouts. Then another voice makes me jump. What's going on? Rowdy has appeared in the doorway of the hut, looking sleepy and ruffled. I'm about to answer him when the dogs erupt into a clamour of snarls and yips, straining forward, hassles bristling. Someone or something emerges from behind a stump. Large and bent, hulking and misshapen, it limps out of the darkness towards us, silhouetted against the moonlit grass. A bear? Jesus, croaks Rowdy and ducks back inside. It's not a bear, it's a man wearing a shaggy possum cloak. Soiled bandages trail along the ground behind one dragging leg. A makeshift patch covers his right eye. He's plastered with muck and missing 2 fingers. His head is like a block of rough-hewn wood, all sharp angles and old scars. I recognise that broken nose. I recognise that mermaid tattoo. I recognise Dan Carver. Stay back! Joe aims the gun at him. I can see it shaking. Stay back or I'll blow your brains out, whoever you are. Joe, are you blind? It's Dan Carver. Joe's jaw drops. Going to finish the job, eh, Joe? Carver's voice puts ice in my guts. That low-level burr, calm and quiet even when he's about to kill you, even when you're about to kill him. That voice is like a pistol being cocked. You should have done it right in the first place, he says. The way you would have? I won't be cowed. Carver's great head turns in my direction, his one eye glinting. I can't hurt no one no more, he rumbles. I swear I'll stay mum if you do. Just give me food and I'll leave for good. He advances 1 step. Don't move. Joe's voice wobbles. So does the barrel of his gun. Stay back or I'll shoot. Suddenly Rowdy bursts from the hut, brandishing a hatchet. That's when a shot rings out from the north. Joe crumples and drops his gun. Jip begins to bark as my lantern falls. Another shot splinters the door jamb next to Rowdy and he darts back inside. 2 guns. I heard 2 guns out there. Joe's writhing and crying on the ground, clutching his arm. Where's his musket? Where's the Oh, I spot it just as Carver lunges. His limp's gone and I know I have to reach that gun first. He's pulling a dueling pistol from beneath his cloak when Peddler bites his leg and he roars with pain. I grab the musket. Joe lurches to his feet and staggers past me towards the hut. Peddler! Let go of Carver or he'll shoot you. Peddler! I shriek. Come, Another gunshot. It's too late. Peddler's on the ground, twitching and trembling, blood gushing from his head. Peddler, oh Peddler, my poor boy. Bastard! The musket seems to fire itself long before I take aim. I miss, of course, and now Jip's trying to bring down Carver. Jip, come, Jip! She skitters back to me as another shot buries itself in the watchbox. Carver's still loading his pistol. Tom! Rowdy screams. He's leaning out of the hut, pulling Joe inside. As Jip slinks past them, Rowdy reaches out to grab me. He yanks me over the threshold and slams the door shut in Carver's face. Then he wedges the bar into its brackets. Suddenly the door shakes from a heavy blow. Carver must be throwing himself against it. Joe's on my bed groaning. I can hardly see him through the tears in my eyes. Peddler, poor Peddler. Jip whines and nuzzles my knee. 3 guns. Rowdy's voice is shrill. They've got 3 guns. He starts to pat the walls, feeling for chinks between the upright slabs. My own hands are shaking so much I can hardly reload. Tearing off the twist of paper was easy enough, but when I pour the powder into the priming pan, half of it spills onto the floor. Ain't no holes in them walls, Joe tells Rowdy through gasps of pain. We filled every one. That won't keep him out though, will it? Rowdy retorts with a glare, since he's clearly got a bone to pick. Damn, so he heard then. We had to kill him or he would have killed us, Joe blurts out. Same way he killed Sam and Walter. But you didn't kill him, did you? Rowdy says, in case he hadn't noticed. The words had barely left his mouth when another voice cuts in from outside the hut. Carver's voice. I told you, Joe, you should have finished the job. Rowdy slaps his hand over his mouth, wide-eyed with horror because Carver's heard everything. You're right about them walls, Carver continues, sealed up tight as a drum. After a pause he adds, we'll just have to find another way in. We? God have mercy. He must have joined a gang of bushrangers. Carver never threatened me. He didn't need to. Instead he would talk about the things he'd already done. He talked about killing 3 men in the hold of the Mermaid on the voyage out. He'd smashed the skull of one man and left him at the foot of the gangway so the death would look like a tragic fall. He'd thrown another man overboard so swiftly and silently that no one had missed him for hours. The third man's passing had been all natural when in truth Carver had smothered him because his coughing had kept the whole deck awake. Carver also bragged about killing a black boy in the bush. He said he did it to clean up the vermin on Mr. Barrett's land. Said he shot the boy and stole his spear and woomerang, which he later used to kill Sam Jenkins and Walter Hogg. The blacks were blamed and a raid carried out, much to Carver's amusement. He would hit me with a musket and the axe handle. Once, because I wasn't gutting a sheep as he wanted, he jabbed the tip of his knife into my chest where the ribs meet. Another time, when the damper wasn't to his liking, he threw Joe onto the coals and held him there until his back was burned. Carver never said he was going to kill me, but I knew he would. He hated that the dogs favoured me over him. He hated that I never lost a sheep. He hated that I could read tracks. One afternoon he took me out to search for a stray sheep but didn't bring the dogs with me. I knew exactly what was coming, so did Joe. What else could we have done but save ourselves? Carver crashes against the door again, trying to break his way in. The whole hut trembles. Here, I seize Rowdy's bed and Rowdy dashes to help. Together we shove and drag it across the room until it's rammed against the door. I wish it were heavier. The only light is from the embers in the fireplace. Our only weapons are the hatchet, the musket and the knives. The axe is outside by the wood pile. We have food, ammunition, 2 buckets of water. Suddenly Jip erupts, barking wildly at a patch of roof high above her. There's a knife blade stabbing through the bark overhead. Someone must have climbed onto the wood pile. You're the one I'll start with, Joe, Carver croons. He's still behind the door. So who's on top of the woodpile, chopping a hole in the roof with his knife? I'll string you up like a dead sheep, Carver adds quietly, and lay your guts open. A shattering impact shakes the whole hut. God help us, he's got the axe. He's trying to hack the door to pieces. Then I'll leave you to the wild dogs, he finishes, the way you left me. Rowdy grabs a stool and shoves it under the widening hole in the roof as shreds of bark flutter down onto his head. I raise my loaded musket. Listen, Carver, take them sheep, Joe rasps. He lurches to his feet, staggers across the room and plasters himself against the wall by the door. There's a knife in his hand. The other arm hangs limp, dripping blood. I can't worry about him, though. I have to watch the roof. They'll flog us, he croaks at Carver, but they'll not blame you. Will not say a word, I swear. The door splinters beneath another blow of the axe. Do you take me for a fool, Joe? Carver sounds amused. With a sudden flash of steel, the knife above us vanishes. The muzzle of a carbine appears in its place. Rowdy's stool is directly beneath it. He looks up, grabs the muzzle and tugs it sharply downwards. It discharges into the floor. A shocked Rowdy tumbles off his stool, still clutching the gun, and abruptly disarms Carver's friend. 2 empty hands grope around overhead. For an instant, I have a clear view of their owner's face framed in the ragged hole. His balding skull looks like a potato, brown and lumpy and crusted with dirt. His small eyes are set askew. He jerks back as I fire. There's a sharp cry and a heavy thud. I'll leave it at that.